quick. My wife doesn't believe you exist.
They said he wasn't real. They said he wouldn't come back.
What if the warmest hug came from someone you couldn't see? A man dressed in black and red shares a tender hug with a glowing ghost.
Hey all, Sparky here. Hey all you Idahoans, Idaho's Deadpool coming at ya. This is gonna blow up. Deadpool army, mount up!
Don't be scared.
Hey all, Sparky's Paranormal and Outdoors is here. So I have a lot of people, when I started this channel, kind of going, I didn't know you were into this, what got you into this, you know, that sort of thing. Because a lot of people, it's surprising how many people are actually interested in this kind of stuff. Yeah, my hair is super long right now. I have not cut it in forever. But, it's bugging me right now. A lot of people have actually asked me, it was like, you've never talked about it before. I'm like, yeah, I really don't talk about that kind of stuff. A lot of you guys might have seen my Richie, banner with Richie B. Shares, looking for Bigfoot. I'm extremely interested in that, coming from Washington State and living there my whole childhood, up to mid-30s. But anyways, paranormal. I'll get on the Bigfoot thing on another video, because I've never actually seen him. I've seen Iglo, but I've never actually seen him, but it's weird. So anyways, paranormal. So I've been kind of like, because I was pretty much raised from like 10-ish to graduation in high school by my grandfather. Like, he took me out every summer and to like get me out of my parents' hair or whatever, because my brother had a whole bunch of stuff going on and the like. So we went archery. There was a ring. We went out and did archery all the time. For it was a competition thing. It was called golf. So it was like the game of golf, but it was archery. So you'd have stakes with what they call a puck, which was think about that big around, about that long, at the bottom of the stake. It was called a flag. And it was a piece of carpet that would just round it up, and your objective was to hit that with an arrow or get as close as you can. If you can get as close to where you can actually put your foot at your arrow and touch it with an arrow and a bow, that means you're good, kind of thing. Anyways, it was a competitive thing he was into, which got me into competition archery, expedition archery. Why some of the guys know me from the Deadpool thing. I put a lot of videos up of me like shooting arrows through wedding bands and cutting tea bags and doing Robin Hoods and all that kind of stuff. That's where that came from. So anyways, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather, and he never said his religion ever, but his best friend was a Native American, and he was very into Native American lore, and he was a woodsman. And so when we would go out, which we'll get into the Bigfoot thing later with this too, there were certain times where, like, I would be like, what is that? You know, it's like weird things, like noises or whistle, or like somebody calling you kind of thing, like voices in the woods. And he'd be like, that's fine, it's good. And he would just like, you know, there's stuff out here that means no harm, and it's just there. As long as you're nice to it, it'll be nice to you. And it was really weird. And so at a very young age, I started actually kind of questioning. It's like, what is out there? And so as I got older, uh, it got more of like, I didn't realize it, but it was a Native American kind of system he was showing me. Uh, and I didn't realize that until I got a lot older and actually worked security for a tribe in Washington State. And then I kind of was like, oh, I know all of this. Or not all of this. I mean, it connects really well. It wasn't totally Native American by any stretch of imagination, but it was close. And so he gave me like the big eye of like, there's more out here than people think. Just, you don't talk about it, you just know it's there. And he was very poignant about that. He had a big piece of land, and so his landscaping, the bottom of it was for my grandmother, so that was just grass. One humongous cedar tree. I think it was about 3 feet around at the bottom. I mean, it was huge. And he would baby that thing like mad. And we would go over there like once a month. I'd be helping take care of the yard, and he'd go over there, and he would spread fertilizer around that tree and put a hand on it, say thank you. And I'm like, well, that's, as a kid, you're like, that's kind of odd. And he's kind of like, everything has energy, and, you just have to say thank you every once in a while. And he would take plants from the wilderness. So he had a yard, big tree, and then he had evergreens and one walkway. The top of his property was one humongous rock. It was a granite rock, or rock shelf, I should say, that went about 35 yards across the top of his property. And he actually had it behind that smoothed out, so you could actually go back there, and he had a little bench you could sit in the middle of this humongous granite rock, which the face of it came up, it went down, and it flattened out. He had his chair, and then it went back up and then over. So you could sit there, it was on a hill, you can just look across the valley, across the lake, and everything else. Beautiful view. Beautiful view. But he'd go up there, and he would always say, I gotta get energized. Your grandmother's driving me crazy. And so he'd grab a drink, go up there, sit, and I'd go up there and sit with him. All this stuff started making sense afterwards. He was like really into nature. He took a lot of plants, like I said, in that little shelf next to the granite thing. He actually would plant, like, when he went out and found like a bush that was underneath other big bushes, knowing that would die because it's not getting sunlight, he would take that bush, pack it up, and bring it home. If he had a tree under a whole bunch of big trees, he knew that was going to die because of how the wilderness goes. So he would actually, okay, I'm going to remove this one. It'll help the bigger trees grow because this won't take the nutrients, and this one can come home. And he had a mini state park in his backyard. I am not kidding you. It's so, anyways, there's been several times from his house to his shop where he had stuff, and it was my job at night when he left something to run out to the shop to get it and run it back to him. There were several times I kept on hearing something call my name, which I was kind of like freaked out as a kid. I had a pretty, not compared to most, rough childhood, but it wasn't fun. And so anyways, at one point he asked me to go out to get something for him, and I was like, I don't want to go out. And he's like, it's okay. Nothing's going to hurt you. It's just dark. I'll turn on the porch light for you. And I'm like, no, because I hear them. And he's like, what do you hear? And I'm like, somebody's up top, and I hear him calling my name. And so I have, most people don't know this, I go by like 3 or 4 names. I have my legal name. I have what everybody called me. And then I had my nickname that my grandfather gave me. And he always did. He was the only one that did. And he goes, what name are they calling you? And I told him it was his nickname for me. And he said, they are trying to help you because you are having a really hard time right now. Just tell them you don't want to go with them, and they'll leave you alone. If they scare you, just tell them to stop talking. And I'm like, as a kid, I'm like, who the hell am I talking to? Who am I telling not to say my name? But I love my grandfather. I trusted him totally and wholeheartedly. The man saved my life more times than I can count and taught me how to live in the woods by myself by the age of like 10 or 11. So I had a lot of weird like that kind of thing. And so by the time I was a teenager, I was really kind of wanting to figure this stuff out. But I really couldn't. Now, which will come back in the story later, my great-grandfather, they actually owned almost all the property on one side of the lake. They were very wealthy. I mean, they were very, very wealthy. No, I did not get any of the money. My grandfather took it all and gave it to other people. For anybody who's saying what I have got from them, it's not. But, so he had a lot of property over there, and he was an orchardist, and he actually helped found not only the boat that ran up and down, or him and my other parents, the boat that went up down the lake to service everybody upside the lake, because that is just by boat or plane. It's very rural. They only not only had that, but he also started the famous trout company for apples. So trout is the leaders for apples that ship all over the world. He was one of the founders for the trout company. And so he has all these properties. And so when we were over with him on his property, he had a freaking mansion. And then he had maybe 15, 20 acres behind his house to the road. And then he had about 120 that went up a hill and across down to a little store called Pat Mike's that my other great-grandfather and great-grandmother owned. And then the road went above that, and they owned like everything going up lake from there. There was one house that's a two-story house, old house, that was there, I remember, from when my grandfather owned it. And I think it used to be like for workers and stuff like that. It was more like for like a ranch house kind of thing. His barn was only like 30 or 40 yards where he kept a lot of his tractors, and he kept some stuff in another barn that was always closed. Like it was pretty close to that. You just had to walk over and down a hill, and that house was there. Me and my brother would be playing out there on the tractors and watching my grandfather and, you know, trying to help him in the orchard kind of thing. And he always tell me, don't ever go down there. I'm like, I can't. He's like, no, you can play anywhere over here. You have to tell me before you cross the road. You can play anywhere on the other property or down by the water or on the dock or anywhere else. You can't go down that hill by that house. Which I was kind of like, okay, you know, you don't question your great-grandfather. You just don't. So anyways, that kind of catches you up to where I was a teenager. I went in the military. I'm questioning all this stuff, but now I really can't look into it because my mother's really devout religious of you don't ever question that. Even though she had like some weird stuff going on with herself. But you just didn't really look into that. You didn't question that. You didn't ask about it. And my dad would just kind of like, I don't want to talk about it because I've heard stories from him when he was a cop and he just did not want to talk about paranormal anything. UFOs, Bigfoot, ghost. He's like, nope. Although he did come with some stories later. So, I just realized I left you guys hanging from the story of my great-great-grandfather that had property with that one house that he said you can't go down to. And I said I'll tell you about it later. I forgot. There's a lot of little stories I got, guys. So, again, when I was in law enforcement, I was in I was with the county maybe 4 years or so. And we had some people call and say, "Hey, there's somebody up in the house." Now, this was abandoned way back in the day when I was a kid. Nobody lived there, and it was still abandoned when I came out of the service. And now, mid-20s, it's still abandoned. I'm like, the house it's a rock solid house, but it's bad on the inside. I mean, like, our locals don't tag or anything like that, so there's not like spray paint or anything, but it's run down. But anyways, so the neighbors call, because now they're at that point in time on the other side of the road. So down where I'm talking, so his orchard came around and this hill and this house sit here, and the road went like this and kind of snaked around for a minute. There's now houses all over by the lakeshore, which weren't there when I was a kid. Those neighbors see lights on in this building. So we get the call, and so I'm going out there, and one of the other guys says, like, "Yeah, I'm on my way," because it's a good sized house to clear. And so we get on tack frequency, and I'm like, this either is bullshit or this is going to be weird. And the guy who's been with the county a lot longer than I have kind of goes, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I know that house. I grew up in my great-grandfather's place just down the road. That house hasn't had power in a decade. There's no lights to go on. So it's either flashlights or it's bullshit." So, anyways, we get there. So you have to drive down, like I said, this little snaky road. So you take a corner, and there's all these bushes, and the house is kind of set up a little high. So then you have to come back on the driveway going into the house. So there's bushes, there's a hill, there's bushes there, It's kind of creepy because once you go up the house, you really can't see a whole lot. You have to be down by the road or be off the driveway where the neighbors are to see anything in the house. We pull up, and sure as shit, there is a light, like a light, shining the whole front of the house. It's an old kind of ranch house, so the top window is like peeked out that shows the big top room, which was like a multiple bunk room kind of thing. There was 2 rooms up there, but the main room up there is like the width of the house and halfway deep of the house. The whole thing is fucking lit up, and I'm like, what the fuck? So, like, we go up there, we get to the driveway, cut off the lights, like you do, when you're just trying to, with trespassers like and kids, you just want to get up on them. Because normally they're just partying and that kind of crap. So, we pull the cars up there. I get out of the car. He gets out of the car. I'm like, what the? He's like, what? I'm like, the light. That's either they have a humongous lantern up there, because that's like lights are on in the house upstairs. There's no power to this house. I guarantee you that. It's like my great-grandfather used to own this property. Nobody's lived here forever. And he's like, huh? And we both look back at the house, and the light shuts off. I'm like, okay. So we go in, and you go through the door. There's a room on your right. There's like a small room on your left. And then you go through that way, and then there's a kitchen, and then there's a back door, and then the stairs. And so I'm like, okay. It's like, I'll go left, I'll clear that room, I'll watch the back door and make sure nobody runs out. You clear the other side, and then come back around to me, and we'll clear the kitchen, and then go upstairs. Because that way we know the bottom floor is done. And so we get up the door, we're being as quiet as possible. Like, no doors are opening. Like, this house is decrepit. You open one of these doors, it sounds like a haunted fucking house. It's like, it's loud. It's like a bobcat screaming. I mean, it's loud. And so we get to the door, I'm like, ready? He's like, yeah. We go in. Door's loud as hell. He goes right. I go left. And I have eyeballs. So I clear the room and I have eyeballs on the back door where the stairs come down. And I'm like, I'm keeping my eyeballs right there. Flashlights, we're calling out, sheriff's office. If you're here, come out. We just need you to leave. No issues, no problems. Just come out and let us know you're there. We don't want to scare you or have any bad things happen. We get through the kitchen. Back door still has not open. There's only 2 doors in this house. We start going up the stairs. Now we're like, nobody's calling out. Usually kids are like, oh shit, oh shit. You can hear them rustling around. You can hear them breathing hard because they're scared. You can hear, cans being thrown out windows or whatever. I mean, kids are pretty noticeable when they're in an abandoned house and they're trying to get the hell out and not answer you. But we start going up and I'm like, oh shit. And so we're going up, flashlights, guns out, because we don't know what the hell's going on. Get to the top. There is nothing up there. All the glasses and all the windows, they're all still like painted shut. These things haven't been opened in like a decade. Like, we tried to see if we could open one. It's like maybe they went out this way, because if you go out this way, you can jump on the hill. We couldn't open the windows. We're sitting there going, what the hell? We looked at the fixtures. No bulbs in any of the fixtures upstairs. No signs anybody has been up there. And we're like, okay. This ain't right. Right? I mean, no footprints in the dust. Nothing. So we finish. We clear. We go out the back. I go out the back door. He goes out the front door. And then we circle the house, look for anybody's there or anybody left or anything else. Nothing. We come back in, check the house one more time. Nothing. Make sure the back door's locked. It's full intact. Glass is full intact. All the windows are intact. We go out the front door, shut the door, go out the patrol cars. Radio in is like, yeah, did nothing. Nobody's here. And they're like, okay. And then I'm telling the dude, I'm like, what the hell? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. And then out of the corner of our eye, the light in the window comes back on. And I'm like, I'm good. Are you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, okay. We got back on our patrol cars and left. That's the story of the house that I was talking about with my great-grandfather. Or my great-great-grandfather. Anyways, kind of rambling. That was kind of my childhood. So I had a whole lot of like, why? I grew up, I joined the military, and so I graduated and left for the military. Like, it was 3 months or after my graduation. I graduated, I'm like, I'm going. Went in the military. And although it was like Korea, I got stuck in Korea for 2 solid years, because of everything going on. Right on the DMZ, suck balls. There was a lot of spiritual stuff over there, but I didn't have anything like weird. You were more worried about like other shit than paranormal. But when I came back, I immediately was kind of like, I need that adrenaline rush. Everything else, I got in law enforcement as a reserve. I joined the local fire department. I went right back to my search and rescue group that I was on even before I was in high school. The Snowmobile Search and Rescue for the county I was in. I almost said the name. And so then I started doing the Marine Patrol and reserve stuff, and so I got into water search and rescue, and then they had their regular like mountain rescue, kind of like, just searching shit. So we had snowmobile, we had water, and we had like dry search and rescue. And then Later on, I got into EMT stuff, and as a volunteer. Yeah, I wasn't good enough to get paid. I just donated my time. But this is where everything kind of got really weird. So I was always interested in it, and I knew kind of a pull of where I want to go in my thoughts and beliefs and stuff. And so I was kind of reading about that, but the ghost thing, I was kind of like, yeah, my childhood is enough to kind of question from the people I really, really trusted. But it's like, I had weird stuff going on in the house every once in a while, but you could write it off for whatever. It was old farmhouse, whatever, when I was a kid. Creepy feelings are, the stereo would turn on, or it would change radio stations, but it's kind of like, it's old. It's like I rebuilt that. It's like, I know how it works. There's springs involved. It could be, whatever. So I really didn't like, for sure. But the more I got interested in it, the more it seemed to open yourself up to actually you started noticing other stuff. Kind of like when you notice something, you actually want to try to explain it real quick, where most people are just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Now you're kind of going, why? Which started heighten of like, where's everything little kind of going to? My big moment where I went, this shit is real. And if anybody wants to call me a liar, fine. Get the fuck out of my life. I don't give a shit. Because it happened. I damn near shot my partner. Because I thought it was that fucking real. There was one stretch of property in the little village I lived in. It was a village. My high school class graduating was 12. Because somebody came back to graduate with us. Because we only had 11. It was that small. There was one little piece of property that everybody knew there was Indian burial stuff on that property. When the tribe came in, when I came out of the military, the tribe came in and they moved they put a lot of money in because they put a casino in there and everything else. And so they moved some stuff to the Indian reservation cemetery on the reservation property next to the casino. And from what I was told, when I got back, they did remove some stuff off that property. And I'm like, well, that makes sense, because we were all, as kids, we were like, you do not go on that property. You don't drive your motorcycle across it. You don't mess with it, because that's a burial site. That's sacred. Don't do it. And so, as kids, we always protected that area from other dumbasses being dumbasses. So, anyways, I get home. I've been told, yeah, that's all been moved. And I'm like, oh, wow. That property has now been sold. There's like a double wide there that somebody's using as just like a vacation home kind of thing. I'm a cop for the county, and we get a call of it was a motion alarm. If I remember right, it was a motion alarm in the house, and then the back sensors went off of the house. So they had like sensors going out the back and out the front, and they had motion sensors in the house. So if somebody drove up the driveway, it would go off, or if somebody came up behind the house, it would go off, or somebody's in the house, it would go off. We get them all the time. Most time, the bullshit. Most time, they're rats, they're dogs, or it just malfunctioned. I'll be honest with you, that's 90% of those things will just go off. Motion detectors, yeah, they work, but you get false readings all the frickin' time. So everybody uses little music boxes. Be aware of that. So, anyways, I'm hauling balls to get there because the sensor says it was in the backyard and in the house. So it means somebody is either in the house or something is tripping it in the house. Animal, malfunction, something. So I'm trying to get there in a big hurry. I have another guy that's a little farther out and is like, just slow a little down. I'll get there with you, because it's a couple acres property. It's maybe 3. And then there's a fence, and there's a tree line, and there's a house, and then there's some egg stuff behind it, like bins and stuff. So if somebody runs, it's a nightmare. And he's like, hold up. And so I kind of just slowed down a little bit. He caught up to me when he was like, I'm about like 1 minute out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get up here. And I'm going to get the house lit up. And so I pull in and I go around to like one corner of the driveway. So the driver comes up and like mushrooms, and then the house is here. So I pulled up and I have my headlights going this way off the side of the house. I have my spotlight going that way. He pulls the other way, does the same thing. We jump out of the cars. I jump out of the car, get to my back of my car, wait for him to pull up. He sets, he gets back in the car. We get ready. We go up. We're looking for footprints, everything else. There is no tracks in the driveway. There is no footprints going up to the front of the door or the front windows or anything else. And it's fresh. The snow has been there for like a week. I mean, from last time it snowed. And so we kind of like, okay, they didn't come in here. And so it's like, let's pair off and we'll go around the house, look for how they got in and if they're still in there. So we can see if tracks went in and out or if they went in and stayed there. Because they think we're still in the cars in the front with all the lights. He goes left, I go right. We're slowly crunching through snow. And I got my flashlight out and we're going and we have it low so it doesn't hit the lights or the windows. I get just to the corner and I turn around and I swear on everything holy, there was a man about maybe 8 feet away from me that had a cowboy-like hat, duster, and I could tell he had a white shirt on and a beard, and he was looking directly at me, and I was like, oh, shit. And he went like down. I drew my gun, and when I drew my gun, when I looked at his hands, that's when I noticed the bottom part of his body was not there. And I have told a couple people this, and they called me a liar, and I don't give a fuck. About shin length down, all the clothes stopped, all the body parts stopped. It was missed. It was just a black thing. I had my flashlight on him. I drew my gun and I came up and took a bead on him, and he wasn't there anymore. And next thing I know, my partner comes around the other side of the house with his flashlight and goes, "What the?" and pulls his up, going, "Why do you have your gun drawn?" I put my gun away. I looked down. No footprints. There was no footprints anywhere in the house, anywhere in the backyard or the field. Nowhere on that property could we see anybody that walked there. We go back to the cars, and I was a little freaked out. He's like, "You okay?" I'm like, when I came around the corner, I thought I saw somebody. He goes, "It was weird because when I came around the corner, I put my light up, and I saw, like, I couldn't see you, and then it was just like, whoonk. You were there with, like, you were totally locked all the way around the corner. Like, you weren't coming around the corner, you were already there." And I'm like, okay. It scared me so bad. As a law enforcement officer that runs into buildings with people trying to kill you or trying to kill somebody else, I was like, oh my God. That was one. I have only seen really like two that were like, that was a person. I like shadows off the corner of my eyes, that kind of stuff, which I've heard a couple of like really scientific things of why you see them there and not there. Very interesting. But that was one of the most vivid. It was a person. It was like literally, I thought somebody was doing, I'm going to be a cowboy kind of thing, and was baiting us there to have a shootout. That's what went through my head real quick when I came around that corner. Very odd. But I've had that I've had a couple experiences where, get the dreams, and then like a month, 6 months later, something happens, and you're like, oh my god, I've had a dream about this actual thing, which, like the deja vu thing, but you remember, like as soon as it starts, you remember the whole thing. That started really intriguing me. And honestly, when I got hurt was another one. So some of you know, some of you don't know. When I got law enforcement, so I went from county. I spent 10 years with, or about 10 years, and then went to a PD of our local PD, where I kind of grew up, or the town next to where I grew up, and spent almost 5 years there. So when I was there, it kind of shut down. Like they just were like, we're not gonna have a PD anymore. We're gonna go with the county. So I was out with no job. We moved, and I started going to school, and we had an opportunity to buy a house in the next big city to where I was going to school at, because I was driving about 2 hours one way to go to school every freaking day, and my wife was actually going to school too, or was just got done with school and was going back to school soon, for all of her nursing stuff, because my wife has like alphabet behind her. Yeah, she's important and smart. Not like me. Anyways, so we had a chance to buy a house, and it was kind of a shit show after the PD shut down, because we really didn't have a lot of kind of support, and so I had to pay a family member $500 a month to sleep on their front room floor. It was that kind of bad. So we had a chance to do that, and so we took it and moved there, which means I immediately had to drop out of school and get the first job I could find, which was a neon sign electrician. My grandfather was an electrician. My father, when he retired from law enforcement after 25 years, he became an electrician. I helped them all the time, so I already knew about the job. So I was like, oh, this is going to be easy, and it's the best paying job I can get. Well, it was a really bad company, say the least. Not a lot of safety whatsoever. I was in the top of a very large commercial building, huge neon sign that took 6 transformers to light up the sign, and I was up there. We were going to replace all of the transformers, and my buddy decided to play with the switch, and I ended up melting down 2 transformers. One burnt up, one the tar actually came through the casing, and then the third fried. So yeah, it was bad. I was really lucky to live. Did finish up the day, although, mind you, it took me like 2 hours to actually be able to talk and walk, but we finished out the day. Had a lot of side effects going on. The next day, my arm got bigger than my leg. I also had like strange issues. Had kidney stones, had severe pain, and then they found out and I got shocked because I had lineman pliers and strippers in my both pockets in the back, and it was a really hot day. When my butt came back, the transfers came up, and it was neon connection, neon connection, neon connection. And so when I dropped the dikes I had in my hand and bent over to pick them up, my hand went on the frame of the sign. I went down to pick up the dikes, and that's right when my buddy hit the switch. So my ass, that was sweaty as hell because it was like 900,000 degrees in that freaking sign. The lineman pliers worked like a paddle, so I got a big red mark on my butt cheek. The strippers did about the same, and the third one was close to the middle of my back. I got a little zap. I got a little pop burned through in my hand where it went to ground. So I was low voltage, high amperage from the transformers that went to a commercial grounded building. So it tried to feed back the same voltage, but it's high voltage. It's like, was it 480? Yeah, it's 480. So I got the really weird humming going one way from the transformers, and coming back it was like a jackhammer. My buddy said I sounded like a screaming animal for about 10 seconds or so when he was trying to yell at me what's wrong, and then figured out what he did, and then cut all the power lines, and then I passed out, and then he had to go up and pull me out of the sign, get me into the floor. I woke up, and yeah. So I have a TBI, I have chronic pain, I have a fucked up back, and I have a lot of stuff. But what also really tuned me in, the reason I went through all that, after I got hurt, people talk about your brain chemistry. If some people have different brain chemistry, they have a tendency to see more stuff. When I was hurt, literally drooling in my bed, or actually my chair, I could actually see shadow people like poking their heads through the wall, like checking on me. Not like scary, kind of like, "Are you okay?" And then I would go, "What?" And as soon as they saw me look at them, they would go, "Fuck." If I didn't look at them, they would sit there and go, kind of like, for like a while. And then I started hearing both my great grandmas talking in my house to each other. "You think he's okay? Do you think he can pull through? I think he's strong enough. His family's there for him. His wife is going to help him. He's going to be," and they'd be talking as like really worried if I was going to pull out of this. Because it was kind of sketchy for a while. I started losing memory after this, which crazy. But I remember going to the doctor, and they were checking, and they were like, you fried your hypothalamus, and you fried this, and you fried that. They're using all the scientific names of like when the electricity went straight up my spinal fluid, it went and I'm like, okay. My IQ went down a lot. We won't get into that, but I didn't know how easy stuff was until you lose some stuff, and then you're like, holy crap. But the therapist was talking, and he's like, "Do you hear voices?" And I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" Because it's like, I'm from a law enforcement background. I'm like, I don't hear people saying kill him or do something or whatever. I'm like, you need to be very specific. I'm not nuts. And he's like, no. I was like, do you hear somebody saying do something bad? I'm like, no, not at all. Like, not at all. And he's like, okay, but do you hear any voices? I'm like, only really two. I'm like, there's sometimes I hear is like people are talking. I'm like, is that somebody outside or is that the radio? I don't know. I'm like, but there's two I know are not explainable. And he goes, what is that? I'm like, both my great grandmothers. And to me, they're talking like, is he going to be okay? And I told him the whole story about like, this keeps on going on. Like once I'm like trying to relax, I hear them in the house. And he's like, oh, he goes, that's from how much injury you had. That's memories flooding back. That's what it is. I'm like, so you tell me it's a memory of my great grandmothers talking to each other, worried about me. He goes, yeah. I'm like, there's only one problem with that. My great grandmothers hated each other and would not talk to each other. It'd be nice if they were in the same room and they said, thank you, Christy. Thank you. I mean, Patty, that would be like amazing. They just didn't talk to each other. They hated each other. And he's like, you have no memories of your great grandmothers or great grandmothers ever talking to each other. I'm like, no. not accept, thank you. Bye. That is about it. There was never a conversation I can ever remember of those two together talking. And he's like, maybe. I'm like, maybe what? I'm like, I'm hearing two really close people to me that are dead that are talking about an incident that just happened. I'm like, I need you to explain this to me. Because I don't want to be going nuts here. Literally, he did psychobabble, whatever. I went home. And the next time it happened, okay, so it wasn't just that. I heard my grandmother's talking, and we had a little fireplace, and there was a clock on top of the fireplace, and I swear to everything, it looked somewhat like my grandfather's head popped through the clock. Like a shadow thing that came through just for an instant. I'm like, okay, I'm done with you guys. I'm like, you're freaking me out. I think I'm losing my mind. I'm having a hard time. You guys need to shut the fuck up and quit popping your heads through the goddamn walls so I can see you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. Go the fuck away. From that instant to when I actually requested them, the spirits, to start talking, nothing. Not a thing. Which is again kind of going, well, it can't be just like psychobabble. And it can't be like a chemistry, you're going crazy thing. Because you just got upset and said, knock it off. And they just stopped. Really odd. I had, I'm sorry guys, this is really long. But it's like, people ask me about the whole paranormal thing. That was like the big one up until when I got hurt, and then I really wanted to know, but I was too busy at that point trying to rebuild a business I could do sitting on my ass because I couldn't be a cop anymore, and I couldn't run and I couldn't walk. I had to use a cane for 9 years. I had to use 2 canes for a while, and then I got down to 1 cane, and then I finally was like, okay, I don't have to wear a cane anymore, which was awesome because I looked like a 90-year-old guy, and I was fucking 40. But it was really weird. There was one other time that was odd. When I just met my wife, and her aunt was into owls, and so I was driving, and there's a great horned owl that got hit by a car and was dead alongside the road. Again, in a very rural area. And this was where I was working security for a reservation. And so I'm driving back. I see it. I'm like, oh, shit. And so I go over. And at that point, it was like I'm already kind of like going into what I have as a religion now. And so I kind of asked permission and because I want to take a feather. And I had a kind of odd feel. And I was like, what the hell? I pulled a feather, moved him off to the side of the road so he's safe. So that way, circle of life can happen. Went to go back in my car. The wind caught the door of my car, slammed me in the face, got back in my car, drove home. Next day, my battery was dead. And then, like, odd things kept on happening. I was like, what the hell? I'm like, there is no way. I went back to the same location. The owl was still there. Which is nuts. Not been touched by any predator or any scavenger or nothing. I put the feather back and I apologized like a mad hatter, jumped back in my car. Then it was fine. I'm like, there's something to this. There has to be. There has to be something we can't explain. Whether you call it, God, angels, spirits, what they're trying to teach you or lessons or whatever. There is something. So anyways, that's my big paranormal stuff. I got some stuff that happened on this property that we'll talk about when I actually go out and do some more investigations here and then other places. Because that's a good filler, because 9% of the time when you're on investigation, I'm just talking to myself anyway, so I might as well tell a story, right? So anybody have any questions or comments or whatever, throw them down below. Yeah, I thought I was going nuts several times in my life. I had an awesome teacher. My grandfather was amazing. But yeah, I don't have answers at all. And I think that's why we do it. I think that's why we look into it, and that's why we question everything and everything else. Is like, I just want to know. It's like, what are we dealing with? I want to know what's here. That a lot of people are like, I want to know what's afterlife or whatever. And for me, it's not. It's like, I want to know what's here, and I want to know how to protect my family from what's here, or what can help me protect my family. And that's it. It's like, when I go, I go. It's like, I'm more worried about my kids and my grandkids and my great grandkids and that sort of thing. Hope everybody has a good one. Sorry you're so long. 41 minutes. That is nuts. Talk to you guys later. I wonder if Tex is on again.